So today, Ryan and I are going to give a speech, Art of Espionage, 2016 edition. This is a speech and topic that we've been talking about for close to 20 years. I've done this speech by title. I believe this is year 16. So what we try to do is give you guys a basic primer on what you need to do for red teaming and the kind of like tricks and things that we kind of teach people on our day one. So if you were to get hired onto our team and work with our practice, this is kind of the basic stuff we'd run you through that first day. We kind of like doing this more as a forum type discussion with the room. So if you have questions during the conference, please feel free to, or while we're presenting, please feel free to raise your hand or just shout out. We rarely make it to the QA section of this slide deck, especially in an hour-long format, because I talk too damn much, and he ends up telling stories. So, all right. So how's it all going to go down? We're going to tell you who we are. We're going to tell you why we're discussing this. We're going to talk about the myths, fables, and bullshit that exist in the industry right now that keep getting in the way. We're going to talk about how you can become a spy and or working in red teaming. We'll talk about how the changes over the last 10 years that we've observed in this industry have kind of changed how we approach our attacks and what we do. We'll talk about the actual process of the attack itself, which is the larger, meatier section of this, where we step through the individual, kind of the life cycle and the wheel of how to conduct the work. And we'll talk about how to tell the story to your client, where they can actually appreciate and understand the assessment that you've done for them. So who are we? Ryan and I are best friends. We've known each other for 20 plus years. We hang out and have worked together on and off in various roles in various different companies. Currently, at this moment, he's my boss, which is kind of cool. But we've been around and worked together for a very long time in this industry. As a collective, though, we're part of the larger 303 organization, which I like to give credit to at the start of every one of my speeches, because if I didn't belong to a larger hacking organization like 303, I wouldn't have had the opportunity and time to learn a lot of the stuff that I'm learning, because I would have been out trying to do it on my own. So I want to credit everybody in that picture for their knowledge contribution over the years. Well, what we're discussing today, we're not going to talk about pen testing basics, vulnerability assessments, incident response, application testing, code review, and exploit development. You guys have some of the best in the world available at this conference who can teach you these things. It's not what we're here to do. Today, we're here to discuss how to not suck at ethical espionage and red teaming.
So more importantly, we want you guys to get a mindset, or to get an idea of the mindset necessary when performing red team testing, which a heavy part of that is staying fluid, adapting to change, because no matter how many plans you have, that's not what's going to happen. So yeah. Red teaming, we're going to define it because I've heard a bunch of different definitions. It's a combination of physical, social, and logical. Testing to make sure that things are going to react the way the client expects them to when they're under an actual attack. So the idea of a network pen test is similar, beating up and making sure that the firewall is the way it's supposed to be. But when we're talking about red teaming, we're combining phishing and lying to people and dressing up as UPS guys and lockpicking and everything else to make sure that all of the different assets they have in place to protect against people like us will work the way they expect to, find the gaps and help them remediate those.
One of the biggest reasons we wanted to include this slide is because we've now, over the last 3-4 years, seen a new trend where people are starting to use the term red team to describe internal testing and or being part of an internal security team. That is not the definition we are using today. Running Nessus is not red teaming. It is a very, very small part of red teaming. The myths, fables, and bullshit that we all deal with, all of you are in this industry, you guys hear this every day. You hear people sit there and say they're not a target, they have never been pwned, that hackers want to put them out of business, next generation security solution is going to fix blah, blah, blah. All these different things that you see are on the screen are a bunch of shit. And you guys know that because you see it all the time. You can deploy your next generation signature-based solution and it's not going to stop a single bit of O-Day. You can sit there and you can tell me that hackers want to put you out of business, and I'll tell you all day long you're a liar, because hackers, if they compromise you, want nothing more than access to your data, your bandwidth, everything else that's there. Putting you out of business would be the opposite of what they're trying to accomplish. The truth is, though, that you really need to keep in mind as we do this talk and as we go through this, because a lot of what we're introducing and teaching to you guys is intentionally low-tech, basic stuff, is that if a motivated attacker wants to get in, they're going to get in.
So, everything's connected. I hate this slide.
That's why I gave it to you.
Again, going back to the idea of why it's physical, logical, and social, and not just one or the other. All these areas, whether it's finance, whether it's hospitals, whether it's small mom and pop shops, it's about protecting the data. The data doesn't just reside on the internet, doesn't just reside on a computer. It resides on printouts, it resides on thumb drives, it resides in people's desks, it resides all over the place. And the point is to protect the data, the credit card numbers, or the health information, or whatever it is that is vital to that company's operations.
So you want to be a spy. We love this because when we talk to people who aren't in the industry, they listen to what we do. We'll show them sanitized deliverables or sanitized videos that we can share that's part of our speeches and things like that. And they're always like, you guys are like real world spies. It's like, you guys are sneakers for real. And the truth of the matter is, both Ryan and I love that movie. And when we were younger, that was one of the movies that helped kind of influence our direction of where we went professionally with our work. Was that we saw a lot of people in this industry that were out there to check a box or to run a test or to get the thumbs up that they've done something good. But what we didn't see was application of attacks that were very real world based, meaning that if somebody was actually going to target you and come in and attack your business, they're not going to sit down with your 6 C-level executives at a round boardroom table and ask you questions about things. They're actually going to attack your business. So the first big step that you've got to do in order to be able to do that is get smart. As all of you know, this job requires you to be a jack of all trades. You can't just be good at pen testing. You can't just be good at fuzzing. You can't just be good at lockpicking. You have to do a little of all of that to be able to apply that and put it together to be successful at this work. One of the big things that we've started doing is pushing people towards looking at the industry-developed and supported standards. So you've got HIPAA, you have Sarbanes-Oxley, you have ISO 2700102, you've got all these different PCI requirements that exist around credit card processing now. So you as an attacker need to start looking at the different industries and verticals of your clients, because that's the kind of thing that in the end, when you're delivering the report and you're talking to them about what you did, that's the stuff that's going to make it matter to them. They don't give a shit how cool you are and how quick you picked through that lock. They care that on the other side of that lock was a data center full of their PCI environment and their PCI data, and that you could have gotten every single credit card transaction simply by being able to pick that door. You have to be able to tie that stuff together when you tell your story.
And when you want to get educated, I mean, these are good learning spots, but at the same time, don't rule anything out. So speeches like this will teach you some, hopefully. But there's books that have nothing to do with red teaming, because there's very little out there on red teaming, actually. For example, one of the books I just picked up is called A Burglar's Guide to the City. It's written by an architect. It's an amazing book, and it talks about how burglars have actually used the architecture of a building to break into it. It gives you a different way of thinking. It makes you start seeing things a little different. That's the kind of stuff you want to start reading more of.
Yep. Definitely attend your conferences, your social communities, and your hack spaces. Again, just like I said at the start of this slide deck, I thought I was cool shit until I started hanging out with 303, and it made me realize how incredibly quickly I was a noob. Because there's just, no matter how good you get at something, there's always going to be somebody better. And if you have an opportunity to come together with those people and learn and share knowledge and information, what a great way to learn and get better yourself.
Or drink a lot.
Or drink a lot. We end up doing a lot of drinking. Other great sources of education, obviously SecurityTube.net is kind of the YouTube of security videos out there. I like to give them a thumbs up because they've put a lot of work and effort into making that data available for all of you. Offensive Security, Metasploit Unleashed is a great primer for people to start with if they've never done pen testing or ever played with the basic tool set that is offered via Metasploit. And then obviously, DEFCON.org is a great one too. Jeff Moss has made it to where all speeches have been recorded and are published. So you've got 24 years of slide content and speeches of the best in the world sitting up in front of you talking about what it is that they do. So please take advantage of these free resources. And we end with getting certified, which both of us kind of, everybody in the industry kind of goes certifications, whatever, it's a piece of paper. But the truth of the matter is, when you're going in front of a Fortune 100 client, largest banks in the world, and you're trying to demonstrate to them the value that you can do, the work that you can conduct for them, it's important to have those letters behind your name, because those letters do mean something to the executives, the HR people, the people that are going to be responsible for hiring you. So as much as a crew, we can all sit here and kind of go on paper.
Except for the OSCP, that's actually a good technical certification. The rest of them, meh.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that you've got it and that you're aware and that you're spending time and resources to do this if you're wanting to do it professionally.
So along the same lines, getting skilled. So people like to talk about lockpicking. The easiest thing to do with lockpicking is practice. That's all it takes. You don't have to have a 200-piece lockpick set. You don't have to have crazy amounts of videos. It's literally just buying locks from a hardware store and just practicing over and over again. Same thing with the NLP stuff or the social engineering stuff. It's getting used to it. It's getting comfortable. It's practice. You want to practice social engineering? Go into a bar. Pretend to be somebody you're not for a while and see how long you can keep it going. And get in that mind, start getting yourself in the mindset of that person that you're supposed to be. It's the best way to practice. A lot of this other stuff, the survival training is probably a bit much.
Mr. Go-Ruck over here.
Staying healthy is not a bad idea, because when you're not healthy and you start doing, especially some of the more physical aspects of this stuff, you're going to fall and hurt yourself.
Military and law enforcement training I put up here, mainly, a lot of people kind of scoff at that, but the cool thing is that if you join the right mail lists and get on the right Facebook pages and this kind of thing, you'll find that a lot of this training is freely available for anybody that signs up. You don't actually have to be a badged LE or a MIL officer in order to take this training. And paying attention to stuff like that got it to where I was able to watch Frank Abagnale talk about the work that he had done before joining the FBI a few years back, simply because I was on the right mail list at the right time. So definitely take advantage of it. Challenges, DEF CON games, obviously we have the challenges here. There's CTFs here that you guys should participate in. Tools here, you've got a great opportunity to be able to learn how to lockpick if you've never done that before. If you are good at lockpicking, you've got an opportunity to be able to compete for some time.
You have an opportunity to teach other people.
Exactly.
Actually, take it that way instead.
That's way better.
Urban exploring and climbing, rappelling, you can skip the being Batman part. No one has that much money. But the urban exploring, it could be quasi-legal depending on where you're going. But it'll make you start thinking about things along, especially abandoned buildings. It'll start making you look at things, seeing ways into them, and paying more attention to your surroundings. And then games you can play at home? What?
Yeah, games can play at home. So I put that in there. I added that because I do challenges with my kids. Like my boys are now 17 and 15 years old, but since they were 5, 6 years old age, I've done the basic stuff like teaching them lockpicking and the, evasion and getting around things, single boot mode in Linux, all the cute little parlor tricks that we all know and use. But one of the things that's really been beneficial with my children, and not just with this type of work, but in their overall life, is helping them get situational awareness. So we play games where I'll walk into a room while they're playing video games, and I'll be like, hey guys, and I'll make them turn around and look at me, and they'll talk to me about something, and then I'll change stuff in the room. And I'll come back in 5-10 minutes later, and I'll be like, what did I change? And you'll watch the kids, because every time I go, what did I change? As soon as I say that, they go, because they know they have to look up, pay attention, really pay attention, look at what has been modified in their surrounding and be able to pick it out. When I first started playing with this game with my kids when they were 5, 6 years old, it was horrible. They could never ever pick it out. They could never ever see what was going on. Now that they're teenagers and they're getting a little older, it's frightening because I make even like tiny little changes like turning something that's sitting on a shelf, and they'll pick it up and notice it because they've programmed themselves to constantly be aware of their surroundings and their environment.
I do something similar with my daughter. We'll go into a restaurant or something, and we'll change rooms. We'll go to a different room, and I'll make her sketch out the last room, like where are the walls, where are the doors, where are the windows, kind of thing. She hates it, but
good.
So getting the right job. Making sure the biggest point here is to make sure that when you're talking to a company about a position, ask the right questions to make sure that you're going in the right position and the position that you think you're going into is exactly what you're looking for. Companies like to describe things in certain ways and then kind of shift you into something else. So you want to make sure that, for example, if you think you're going into a red team job, you want to make sure that they have a methodology, documentation, templates. They already have a team. You're not just the only person that's suddenly doing this and they've never sold it. May have happened a couple of times.
The bigger thing that we see is that people want to get into this work. They think it's interesting. They go to the conferences. They think it's great. And then they go and they get an entry or an apprentice level like penetration testing job and get pissed because they spend 10 years learning how to hack local networks and never ever once do any bit of red teaming. The big thing that we find that really kind of pushes that are the safety fakers, as we like to call it, where you've got these companies that love to put titles and descriptions about what the work is, but it's actually not what they're doing or conducting. I can't tell you the number of times that we've talked to companies that do penetration testing and all they do are vulnerability assessments, or companies that say they're doing red teaming and internal development of threat programs, and they do a very basic pen test, maybe some documentation review.
And I used to work for IBM years ago, and they would say, we do physical penetration testing. What, you need more water?
Yeah. Thanks.
And they would get clients occasionally that would sign it, and I'd get all excited because I finally get to do this again. And then legal would get a hold of it. No, we don't do that. We can't handle that liability. So it's tricky. You have to ask the right questions, make sure you know what you're getting into.
The other thing to remember as you do this job is that time equals change. We're going to talk about this a little bit. as we go through this, but a good way to look at it is I took this picture in 2006 for the same speech. These were the tools of the trade. You can see that I've got a radio, I've got good old PCM, CIA, wireless Orinoco cards up there for Kraken WEP, all this great stuff, right? And at the time that I took this picture, this was literally cutting edge, top of the tool deck of the type of stuff that we were using for our work.
That backpack has an entire RFID cloning kit in it.
Yeah, actually, funny enough, this thing has lasted a long time. I still have that backpack. But nowadays, when you look at what's going on, everything can fit in your pocket. I mean, this is a pretty standard setup here. I've got a pwn pad, all the individual little tools, a very, very small collection of picks. You can see there, just like Ryan was saying, my previous slide deck, you're looking at, $300 worth of picks and all this crazy evasion stuff. I've broken it down to a Southern Ordnance kit that's just a few things, because it's all I ever really need. One of the biggest things that you'll hear from us as we go through this is it's really easy when you first start doing this work to just want to pack like 5 or 6 backpacks full of every single piece of gear you can think of. And then you realize when you go do the work that really all you needed was a strong shoulder and a credit card, right, to pop through the door. So the key is really make your weight count. Think about what it is that you're bringing, why you're bringing it, how you're going to use it, what the likelihood is that you're going to use it, and how screwed you'd be if you didn't have it. That's really the big thing that makes my decisions.
And no matter how much stuff, remember that the more stuff you carry, the more you have to dig through it to find the right thing you're looking for. Mute that.
I'm trying to mute it. I have no idea how to mute that.
Yeah, we'll talk over this for a minute. About
there we go.
8 years ago now? Wow.
8 years ago that
we did a bad TV show called Tiger Team. It lasted for 2 episodes. This was an episode where we had to break into a jewelry store in Beverly Hills. And what we're talking about right now is we couldn't. The easiest way to bypass the front door was going to be to clone the guy's RFID card. And a friend of ours had built this RFID cloning kit, which
that's literally one of the first RFID cloners in the world. By the way,
it was massive and heavy and fit in that backpack, and then you had a cable that snaked down your arm, and you had to palm the reader, and you got to get really close, like almost grab the guy's ass. And that's what they show is Luke grabbing the guy's ass.
I always make sure I include that, I let you guys know.
You'll see it in a couple of slides, but RFID cloners now I think are about the size of a stick of gum.
Yeah, so you guys have all seen, we walk up behind the guy, we take his badge, we walk off, there's a lot of talk that's going on here. But the big thing to take away from this is that when we did this testing, and I talk about this a little bit, when we did this testing before, really there was a handful, about 3 or 4 people in the world that were looking into hacking RFID technologies. We're producing equipment, we're doing the work. Zach Frank and Adam Laurie, those guys were really killing it with RFID. I think it wasn't even called that yet.
It wasn't even called that yet.
But they were really doing some neat research and work. They were presenting at DEF CON and Black Hat on it, and it kind of got us interested. That unit that's in my backpack was put together by Delchi, another 303er, and it took him 5 months of testing and playing to get to where he could capture a card and replay a single card, using Adam and Zach's research to be able to put that together for us and build a functional unit. And if you noticed, it's fucking huge, man. It took an entire backpack. It was super hot, because the other thing that was interesting is to generate enough current for us to be able to use those RSID readers. We had it was 3 or 4 lantern batteries linked together in parallel, and then going through a voltage regulator just to have enough charge to walk out on the street, clone the badge, walk back to the car, and pray to God the battery or a connection didn't disconnect somewhere in between, because we would have lost everything.
It was kludged together, to put it nicely.
The best thing to look at is we can only capture 1 card at a time at best. It was impossible, realistically, to rewrite your own cards at that point. Most of us, if we were doing card rewrites, all we were actually doing was calling the company that produced the cards and saying, hey, this is our site ID, and we also need these card numbers from this point to this point, and we would do these orders of hundreds of dollars that would be overnight shipped, where we'd have all these little cards just to be able to hack 1 RFID card. RFID card, sorry. Not supposed to drop company name. Replay attacks weren't very reliable with the portable gear at the time, but now with it being 2016, obviously we've got the Proxmark 3. It fits in your little tablet. I've modified the tablet, and I'm using the testing software that's inside for playing with your Proxmark to be able to log every single read. So now it makes it to where when I can carry this little reader that's about this big, I can literally log thousands of cards as I walk through an area. If the battery dies, it doesn't matter. It's already logged to a file. I go back home at the end of the night, and I can sit there and write these out to the various T-base cards that we have now that you can write to. The other thing to take into consideration, that handheld RFID writer on there, we all look at it and we've seen it. I've actually seen one work in real life. Everybody looks at them and doesn't want to order them because they're out of China for $9, but I've actually watched one work on an engagement. And even cooler is the Blue Key, as you see down there in the lower corner. What once was a backpack full of gear for us to be able to hopefully be able to do something is now something the size of a quarter that you can place inside of an RFID reader and then use your phone to be able to trigger it to replay people's connections as they've come back through. Pretty neat stuff. The other way to look at it is that backpack full of gear was almost $2,000 worth of research and work put together. The Proxmark, or the Proxmark 3 along with the Pwn pad setup that I've got there is about $1,000 worth of hardware to do it right. Handheld RFID reader was $10, I think, and the Blue Key, what are they selling for now, guys?
I think like $20,
$5 or something if you get them, if you buy a bulk of them. But it really just kind of goes to show that it's one of the things you need to think about is as you're doing this work and as things advance, so are going to be the attacks, so are going to be your approaches. All of that stuff is going to get different, and you're going to have to modify your approach throughout the years.
So the general wheel of attack, we can skip this one, go to the next one. So the basic rules to live by. Number one is be prepared. And I say charge your phone because your phone at this point is pretty much the lifeline of a test. You have to be able to communicate with your other team members. You have to be able to collect evidence. You're not always going to be allowed to walk out the door with paperwork and computers and shit. You have to be able to take pictures, videos, etc. to prove what you were able to do.
Mute your phone.
Mute your phone because when you're talking on it, when you're pretending to talk on it, and then it actually rings in your ear, people notice, and it's loud. But especially, don't just charge your phone. Have a backup battery too. I just was on an engagement last week where my coworker was sitting under a desk for 4.5 hours. His phone died. And so he couldn't text me that the lady inside the office had noticed me, even though I was moving my car around the parking lot so that I wasn't in the same spot. She had noticed me and called the police. And he wanted to text me, but his phone died, so he couldn't tell me. So the police showed up, and I don't talk my way out of that. Act tactically, don't look it.
Part of the reason that you don't see us using the big antennas and ham radios anymore, and why we sit here and tell you to use your cell phone, is because it looks out of place. You don't want to walk in looking like you're a spy, looking like you're a Fed, looking whatever it is. You want to blend in, but you need to be thinking and acting tactically while you do this work. One of the biggest things that I watch new people make a mistake with doing is they'll walk into a room or an area that they don't belong in, that they shouldn't have been in, and someone's there, so they do the worst thing in the world. They pause, they look scared, they turn and they walk out, versus just walking in and owning the room, owning the area.
Keeping it simple. And this is something when you're doing red teaming, this is not with the right clients. It shouldn't be a one-time thing. It should be something that happens every year, every other year. Because the idea is you start really low. You keep the low. You start with the low tech. Because if you start off RFID cloning and going crazy and super high tech, you're going to give them a report, especially a client that's never done this before. And they're going to read it and freak out and not know where to start fixing shit, put it on the shelf, and never talk to you again. If you start with simple things, card shimming, maybe some lock picking, social engineering, tailgating, as stupid as it sounds, is still a huge problem. Start with the simple shit. Let them have time to fix that. Give them recommendations on the simple things. Start off cheap for them, because there's usually cheap fixes for that. Then they'll come back the next year. You've made it more difficult on yourself, but that makes it more fun for us too. I don't want to keep doing the same shit every year against the same client. I want it to get harder. To the point where eventually you're stretching. You're like really having to reach for how the hell you're going to get in this building or how the hell you're going to get the flag. To the point where you can give them a report and maybe you got the flag, but you can also tell them look, based on your company and based on the threats that exist for your company, no one's going to ever really do this. If they do, here's how to detect it because you can't stop it.
Yep. And remember, number 4, you're the criminal. This is your job. Your job is to replicate a real-world attack. Criminals do not walk in, I said this earlier, but criminals do not walk in and sit down at a large desk and do a system of checks and balances to make sure that you've got a firewall installed. They're going to walk in through your front door and they're going to pick the easiest targets of opportunity, and that's what they're going to attempt to exploit and steal.
So let's start with information gathering. This is mainly, you'll start online. You'll go through, we've got, Google Maps and Hoovers and LexisNexis. Social media is also huge. Every company has social media presences. You want to know what their badge looks like? Go look through Flickr. Go look through their Facebook account. All you got to do is you'll see a picture of someone wearing a badge. You don't have to duplicate it exactly. You make it look close enough that when someone glances at it, they see the green panel with the black letters.
One of the other things to do is check out the website of the company that you're hacking. Going back into looking at the pictures like he's talking about at various company events, it'll tell you what kind of dress they have, what kind of clothing they wear. Are there a lot of people that have big beards and mohawks at the place that you're walking into, or is it all really clean-cut people that look like they just walked out of church? Those are important things for you to know before you're ever even on site.
And you'll also see things, because clients, for whatever reason, love to brag about who they use for hardware. So you'll know if they're using Cisco or Dell, or go to a thrift store and buy a Dell shirt, and you'll get right in the front door.
So when we started this work and started doing this work 1996, 1998 time frame, we didn't have all these online options. We actually had to go to do, you'd go to county records and public service searches, and you'd do these types of things. And it took weeks sometimes to be able to pull data and information about these businesses. Now with Hoovers, LexisNexis, Google Maps, you can literally, with Google Street View, you can walk around the facility over and over again before you're ever even there.
Depending on the building, you can walk in the building.
Yeah. On-site recon, same kind of thing. We've all seen the pictures and videos of people sitting out in a car and done it for 10 to 12 hours where you sit there with a little piece of paper recording what's going on. It's modern times now, guys. There's no reason to do that. You can put a drone out, and you can fly a drone up above the business. You can fly a drone near the business. These things are fairly silent anymore if you get the right ones. It makes it really easy to collect a whole bunch of information very, very quickly without having to reveal your identity, yourself, your location, any of that. I don't know if you guys can really appreciate it, but the middle picture that I have there is a glass window that someone has scribbled a whole bunch of their notes and passwords and other types of things on. Make sure that you have a clean desk, clean board policy. People laugh at me about this when I say this, but I cannot tell you the number of times that we've gone to businesses and they don't realize that just because they can see out during the daytime and not see in when they're standing out smoking a cigarette doesn't mean that that's the way it is at night. If lights are left on and you're sitting a mile away and you've got one of his camera lenses that he just bought for this job we're on, you can literally take high resolution images through the glass, multiple floors up of what people have on the boards, and it's a great way to get access to different things inside the business. The other thing is, we used to do a lot of dumpster diving. Again, you guys watched the Tiger Team thing. You saw examples in real time of us going through bloody tampons and God knows what else, just
Food.
horrible shit.
It's disgusting.
Give it up.
You don't have to anymore.
This world's done. Nowadays we have secure bins that everybody's supposed to put their documents into. And the cool thing is, you can usually open them with a flathead screwdriver because the stupid hinges on them, they can have a nice big fat lock on the front, but the hinge on the back can literally just be pulled out so you can lift it up in the other way and use the lock as the hinge. But the cool thing about those sensitive document bins is that you're guaranteed to be getting gold because no one would take the time to walk away from their desk and throw it in there if it wasn't something critical and important.
And you're guaranteed to keep your hands clean because no one puts food in them.
So target selection. Obviously, I've got some pictures there. These are things that we looked at. The only real one that I want to call out here is that lower one with the brick wall. A lot of people ask me why that picture's in there. Obviously I've got one here of tailgating. I've shown examples where we can use alarms to stop elevators to get onto various floors. But the one on the lower part there, the reason I showed that is that the building architecture itself actually provided me with a series of stairs that I was able to use to get up to the second floor where none of the windows were locked. They'd only thought about actually locking and securing. If you look at the window that's right below there, you can tell that's nasty, hardened lockdown window. All the ones that are above it on the second and third floor, you just literally go up and push it open.
So, when you're talking to the client at the beginning of the project, you need to establish a flag. Whether that's you need to get a certain piece of data, whether it's stay in the building for 30 minutes. I mean, it could be anything, but you should always have a flag. It can't be just we want to see you break in. I mean, that's fun, but you still have to have a goal.
It sucks if you're doing it professionally because you still actually have to abide by a scope. What has the client said that you can and cannot do? And it's really important to make sure that you clearly define that before you start breaking into their facility.
Especially if they've never done it before, because they might think this is going to be really cool, but they don't really understand what kind of tricks are going to be used against them. So you make sure you have a conversation with them like, here's what we usually do. They'll rule in or rule out what you can and can't do, and that's fine. You have to, I had a client last week, it was a bank. They ruled out lock picking and the use of specialized tools. which kind of limited things. So I used a pizza and a coat hanger and a manila folder and broke in.
Big thing to think about, too, is when you're doing this professionally, how much time do you have? Unlike a criminal who can spend months, maybe even years, prepping and planning to do a large coordinated attack, when you do this professionally, you're usually given somewhere between 5 to 10 days to actually execute and do the work. So you have to work very, very quickly, and I will not sugarcoat it at all for you. If you come and work with us or any of the other teams that really specialize in this type of thing, you will not have 8-hour work days. Your work days will be 16 to 20 hours when you're doing this work. And that is just for you to have enough time to get everything done that you need to get done.
At the same time, you're going to be really into it. You're not going to want to sleep. And even when you try to, you're like, oh, shit, wait, we can do this. And you're going to want to leave the hotel and just go try it immediately.
When discussing the flag and the important things with the client, really talk to them about what's critical for their business to operate. Who gives a shit if you steal a whole bunch of credit card information from them if it turns out that it's all being processed by a third-party processor and never ever once touches their environment? But they may be very, very interested about the fact that you just dumped 120 people's HR data about their medical records, about their insurance, social security numbers, home addresses, phone numbers. That stuff means more. And that's really the key, is while you're talking to your client and you're trying to kind of scope this out, understand what's most important to them. There you go. Planning. We'll get into this a little bit more, but the big thing to look at here is that I put this quote in with Bruce Lee because it's a big deal. I've done assessments with various people out there. I give a lot of respect to the different people I've worked with, but I've met some people who are really hardcore in this industry that have to have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, and it becomes this huge mess of pre-planning, when the truth of the matter is you just have to be able to be flexible. So notice that the stiffest tree is most easily cracked, while the bamboo or the willow survives by bending in the wind. Bruce Lee made that quote, and it's absolutely true in the way that we approach this. Look at it almost from a martial arts standpoint of you're wanting to be able to see the threat that's coming at you, and you want to be able to react as quickly as possible.
And a lot of those approaches and stuff will come out in your online training. And you don't have to do this.
You're not Tom Cruise. Don't try to be Tom Cruise.
No one repels in, and I don't. Do we have any clients?
I have one time got to actually rappel off a building to get into it. One time in 20 years of the work. But planning and preparation?
So my favorite are thrift stores, because if you go to the thrift store closest to the client, you'll probably find old shirts of theirs that employees that have left have given to them or thrown out, or the client themselves gave to them when they were trying to be nice and donate to the community after they changed the new logo. Badges, again, what do the badges look like? What do the business cards look like? All of these things, if you can collect all this online beforehand, you can start making all of this in your plan. Again, be ready before you go on site. Print out business cards easily enough. You can print out badges.
Kinko's. Yeah.
Kinko's is your friend, too, because everywhere has a Kinko's, and they're open usually 24 hours.
Planning the attack. So when you're actually on site and you're doing the vulnerability and site analysis, the big thing that you need to be thinking about is how are you going to get in without being seen? How are you going to deal with the various security controls that exist? And how are you going to locate what it is that you're looking for? One of the most interesting things that will bite you in the ass on your first day of doing this job is you've broke into the building, you're in the facility now what? If you don't know the floor plan, if you don't know where the data center is at, if you don't know where the administrative offices are at, you're just wandering in the dark.
And that goes in back with that whole, there has to be a flag. Because if there is no flag, you don't even know where to start. That first line of getting in without being seen, that might be where Luke and I differ on our opinions, because I don't care if I'm seen. If I already got away, then great, you have videotapes of me doing something bad. Yep. Maybe I'll just steal the videotape. That's happened in the past.
It works. So execution. When you get ready to do the attack, you've gone in, you've gathered your information, you have a good idea who these people are, the different types of threats that are in place. You need to prepare yourself for that work. Part of that is mental conditioning, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But the other aspects is you need to make sure that you're aware of real threats that exist, how you're going to get in, what you need to get in when you get in, how to not get caught, how to maintain persistence once you've left, and how to get out cleanly. The big key rule that we teach everybody is don't fuck it up. So states of awareness. I used to call this the stop sign slide, but the truth of the matter is that I stole this from the United States military. They train this, the mental conditioning. All soldiers go through this training. All law enforcement go through this training anymore. The aspect is that all of us who live in life, you sitting here in this room right now, you're probably in a condition green where you're comfortable, you're unaware of various threats that exist outside of this room. Most people live their life like this. when you work in law enforcement, military, or you start doing operational type work like this, you'll train yourself to continually exist in the condition of yellow. You want to have that heightened awareness. You want to be attentive. You want to understand what's going on. You want to be aware of the conversations that are happening around you. It takes a bit of work to get your brain trained for this. It's not something you can just flip on and off. The big key is that you don't necessarily want to live in red. Red is after something has already happened. It's reactionary. You look panicked. You look stressed. You look rushed. If you're doing this work, those are all very, very negative things. The other thing is really making sure that you know the true threats that exist. For years, we've sat here and, mom, sister, plug your ears. We've worn Kevlar vests when doing certain engagements like airports, large banks, and places like that because we're going up against rent-a-cops that have real guns and real bullets.
And they don't know we're coming.
And they have no clue that we're coming. They see us as a real-world threat, which is technically, in my opinion, the only way to conduct this type of work and assessment and have it be real is for the people who are responsible for the security not to be aware that you're coming in and doing this work. But the big key is also make sure that you've got your get-out-of-jail-free card.
Printed and on your phone.
And on you physically to where you can reach in your back pocket and pull out a piece of paper that shows that you are authorized to be conducting and doing the work.
And that doesn't have to be a crazy legal document. That literally just has to say with a date and time and a signature of the client, preferably on the client letterhead, saying, bearer of this letter is authorized to be doing this kind of testing. Here's what's involved. Here's the sites that are involved. Here's the dates that are involved. If you're in question of the validity of this letter, call these numbers, and it should be office and cell phone numbers of at least 3 people that know you're doing the testing. Because at 2:00 in the morning, when you have to use that, you want someone to answer the damn phone.
He does not get caught, guys. Really. If you show your get out of jail free card, you've lost. Look at it that way.
Don't run if a cop catches you.
Yep.
That's a bad idea. They don't like that. And honestly, when a cop, and this has happened in the past, if a guard or a cop is drawn on you, don't reach in your pocket for the letter. Just tell them where it is.
Oh, dude, apparently we gave him bad advice because if you look at Breaking In on the TV show, like 3 of those people are hanging from cords right there. So, yes. I mean, I guess we did it wrong, guys.
Christian Slater's the only one that doesn't.
Yeah.
Because he's old.
But we did include you a nice little slide of me looking like I'm giving Chris Nickerson head in a safe for Tiger Team. Okay, physical ways of getting in. Our favorite physical ways that get us in and that have worked over and over again in the past is get them to invite you in, guys. I mean, it's cool to go sneak in and do all that, but that shouldn't be your first step. Your first step should be reaching out to building management, building maintenance, talking to them about various ways that you can get in. It's amazing when, especially on these big shared property facilities, if you call up and just be like, hey, do you have any offices open? We would like to look at your offices because we're looking to open a location in your area. They'll literally walk you in, and the best part is the person who's walking you in and showing you around in the building, their RFID card opens every door, and they're not security people, so they're not going to think it's weird when you pull out your little pwn pad set up with a Proxmark 3 inside of it, and you go, oh, that's a really cool badge, clink, and then hand it back to them. They have no idea that you've just stole their badge in doing that. Utility company is one of Ryan's favorites.
Bug sprayers.
Yep.
I like being a bug sprayer. No one thinks about it. They all want to ignore them. And you can spray air. Like I've had a bug sprayer and gone into a data center and I was literally spraying air in the thing. And the guy comes running and he's like, wait, you can't spray that in here. I'm like, no man, it's cool. I got this. He's like, what? I'm like, it's special quick drying bug spray. I'm like, watch. And I spray it in front of him. Like, see, you can't even tell it's wet.
Public bathrooms and public reaching areas are wonderful. Just lift if it has false ceiling, any of the soft ceiling tiles, lift it. Almost always you can use that to get access into secure areas of the building. It's rare to actually find places that have designed a building with the intent of a data center or a secure server room. Like I can't tell you the number of times like safes even. Yeah. Like they just this is our safe room, and you go over and you push up in all 4 directions into where their safe room is. You can literally just crawl over from somebody else's office into the room. Why take the time to pick a lock if you can crawl over it? The big point of all of this is you want to present yourself as if you belong.
And be friendly. You don't have to be an asshole. People talk about how you can be aggro on social engineering. You're not going to get very far with that. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get shut down. Smile
and flirting goes a long way, guys. On-site of incentive, we talk about candy, contests, and pizza. Eric Smith, I'll use this as an example. One of our friends, a gentleman who works with Loris Consulting, him and another consultant went up to the place that they were hacking, and they'd already done the job, they'd already gotten everything, but they wanted to see how far they could really push it on their last day. So they walked into this facility, took a folding table, set it up in the lobby of the business. And this is not a shared property. This is like the lobby of the blah, blah, blah business that they're hacking. And they put up a little sign that says, come test the strength of your password. And they were giving out free candy bars to all these people that are typing into an application their password to test the complexity of their password. The crazy thing was over 70% of the people that walked up and actually typed in their password gave them a legitimate domain account and credential for the business that they were in. You'd be amazed. People are stupid, guys. Other fun things to look at, obviously, RFID we've already talked about. The credit card trick still works. That's a super hardcore badass lock right there, by the way. That's probably, the lock that I'm sitting there shimming is probably almost a $200 installation on that door for that panel and that lock, and yet I got into it with a room key.
Oh, and don't use credit cards. You can get Starbucks gift cards for free, and they're perfect strength and size to shim doors with.
Walmart gift cards are pretty good too.
Don't use your ID. Don't use your gift card. Don't use your actual credit cards. And if you do use your ID, you're gonna get questions every time you show it to somebody. Like, because it's not hard to figure out what happened to your ID when there's 3 little dents in it. I've done it once, and I still regret it.
So other fun stuff is, if you can see how on the third picture there, the gate's exposed, meaning that I can easily get a tool in there to do the credit card shimming trick. So if you're installing or responsible for security, you need to walk around your business and think about this shit. Magnetic locks are one of my favorites because all you've got to do is walk up there with a little bit of iron filings and rub it across the top of that magnetic bar. Any kind of a break that you create, even at a microscope level between the magnet and the bar itself, makes it to where if you put your foot towards the bottom of the door and pull, it'll transfer all the way up to the top panel and pop the door open. So on some of those bars where they're like, take 6,000 pounds of force to open this door, no.
Until you put a piece of duct tape on the magnet.
The reason I included the one on the bottom on the middle, it's one of our favorite tricks. We carry a Ziploc baggie with a sponge with liquid Tide on it. You can wipe down a keypad or a key surface face. Cool thing is, after people come in and touch it, the residue of the oils on their fingers and the fingers touching it will dim the effect. Cool thing about liquid Tide is is full of photophosphorescence. So when you hit it with a black light, it glows bright. So you can see where it's dimmed. Those are the buttons that people have been touching or using. And my favorite on this one is that key there is a ridiculous, insane key and would be super hard to pick that lock. But it was awesome because the janitor who I was sitting there talking to as I told him I was taking pictures to change out the locks for their security, handed me the key so I could take a picture of it and go home and cut my own. Other types of things that exist that are a little shittier. Power supplies for data centers. A lot of states require that you can't lock these by law. So walk up, shut off the power to the building. It is the biggest, dickest move you can do. Great way to tell them that you're testing their UPSs, but you'd also be amazed at the fact that because of loss of life being the leader in how this stuff is done, when you kill power to a building, there are tons of security controls like electronic magnetic locks that fail open by law.
It makes a lot of noise.
When you do
that to an entire building, you hear it outside. You just hear chunk, 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 chunk.
Not only that, you hear everybody being like freaking out as they walk outside to smoke cigarettes. One more great way to be able to swoop RFID badges off of people. What a better way to put 300 potential badges out in front of a business than to shut off the power to the business or to trigger the fire alarm. We all know the tricks with motion sensors like I showed up there in the middle. We've talked about the hot water under the door, the can of compressed air. All those things still work. I show down here on one of the door magnetic sensors that you can literally peel back the cabling and bridge the two, and then it never ever knows that the connection has been modified or broke. Alligator clips actually help a lot with this. And in the middle, when you've got 2 glass doors, anytime you've got 2 glass doors shutting this way, means that you've got a potential to be able to go in with a tool and hit the crash bar from the other side. My favorite thing to do with that is just a strap of aluminum folded in a number 7.
That's where the bank last week, they had problems with that. And that's where the manila folder and the coat hanger went right through and triggered the exit sensor on the door.
The other thing to remember is if you can't break in, go around it. Like, it's unreal how many different security controls are put in place that just really have no purpose. I love the one down there. It's hard to see in this picture, but the one with the grass is people driving away a drop arm. All right. Breaking in via technology.
We gotta go faster.
Yeah, we're getting there. So abusing technology, again, we're not going to sit here and talk about vulnerability assessment penetration testing, but you guys have the idea there, what we're talking about. You can get little key loggers that you can physically walk in and put in line with somebody's keyboard. Small little cameras are easy to plant in place, and they do a really good job of being able to give you access to see what keys people are typing into keypads, other types of things like that. And I got to give props to cert.net because forever now they have been the single largest source of default credentials out there on the internet. So definitely.
When you're doing your initial reconnaissance on a site, you say, for example, find out that they're using wireless cameras and you can see those cameras. That's the best way to find out what the inside of a building looks like without having to even go in the door.
And those camera systems are almost always installed with default credentials because it's done by a third party, and the people who are using it inside the business never take the time to go back and harden those credentials.
And when you get your fish to work and you've got your toehold in the network, start searching for things like cameras or badge, or because they'll name those computers badge, camera, whatever. Again, if you can use external resources without even going in, take advantage of it. That's part of the whole blending social. Oh, I sent a fish and I got a toehold, and then I found your camera system, and then I got into the building, or I found your door control system. That happened before. And I just literally walked my guy, and I could see him on the cameras, so I said, okay, take a left, and then I opened that door for him, and then he went in the next room. I called the elevator down for him, sent him to the 15th floor, opened a couple of doors for him, and he was exactly where he needed to be, all because they clicked a link in an email.
The other thing is, don't ever underestimate the power of stupidity. Bring your own disaster is now everywhere. Even hardened military facilities now, even though there's policies against it, you will always find some jackass standing there with a smartphone that has Bluetooth enabled and wireless enabled. There's a million different tools that's out there that you can use to man in the middle of this and take control of those devices, which they then carry into their secure facilities. Other devices, obviously, lots of other stuff here that we can hack and things that we can look at. Pagers, POC, SAG, and Flex are easy to decode. Printers nowadays, a lot of printers have, 64 gig worth of memory. That's an awesome place to be able to store your tools and be able to have a dumping ground to put data that you've exfiltrated out. Convenient-based threats have made things really easy. We have coffee machines, smart TVs, smart fridges, Nest, all these things now, they can all be hacked. All this stuff has been publicly exploited and pushed out there.
Especially smart TVs, those things are in conference rooms all over the place. They have webcams, they have microphones. You can just watch what you need to.
But the big key to remember on all this technology stuff is don't spend a lot of time, resources, and energy trying to look cool when you can just pwn people because people are stupid. The key is that we have an uphill battle to fight because, like I said, people are really, really stupid and they do dumb shit. So they can even know that what they're doing is the wrong thing and they'll still do it. Unlike a technical control, to where if you program it not to do something, it's not going to do it. People don't function that way. The crazy thing is that, 10 years ago, we were having to build asterisk servers with VoIP, and we were doing all this crazy work to be able to do caller ID spoofing and just to be able to get through. Nowadays, you can download Spoof app on any smartphone and pay, $5 for 100 minutes or something like that for credits. And in my opinion, it works better than the asterisk servers and the other stuff do because it's on your phone, you have it there, you don't have to have external access to hit that server. It makes it really, really solid. Social Engineering Toolkit, once again, props out to the guys at Offensive Computing, but this is a great tool set that's freely available for everybody to download. We use this along with 3 or 4 other software packages for our work.
Yeah, except the Social Engineering Toolkit's not at OffSec, it's TrustedSec.
Oh, whatever. TrustedSec. One of the two.
You guys
are doing good work.
The guy giving the keynote tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah, you guys are doing good work. But the big key is you can walk in and just ask for it. Back in the day, the thing that everybody would talk about was walking around with a clipboard and a pen to look professional and look important. Well, I argue against that because that draws attention to you and it makes it look like somebody who, if someone is responsible for the business or the operation, they're going to come talk to you and they're going to ask you why you're walking around taking notes. The amazing thing is that if you walk into a business staring at an iPad and you're playing on your iPad and doing your thing, no one's going to stop you or ask what you're doing. The cool thing is that the iPad, or whatever it is, your phone pad, can have a million different hacking tools on it where the piece of paper does nothing more than draw attention to you. So again, I show that between the differences. 10 years ago, everybody was saying the best way to go in was look authoritative. I'm saying now the best way to go in is go in and look like anybody else.
Building rapport, we talked about it a minute ago. Make sure you blend in. Make sure you wear the right clothing to match them. Don't have tattoos showing. If you can hide your tattoos, wear a long sleeve shirt.
Or make sure they're really cute.
No,
Oh.
don't do that. Take your piercings out, dye your hair to a normal color, cut it. You're gonna have to give up some things for this job. It's still fun, and when you're not doing the job, then you can have blue hair. But
The other
when
thing
you're on
is,
site,
take the time to study. Again, NLP, this stuff has been researched for a long time. A lot of people call it a pseudoscience. I can tell you, fine, it's pseudoscience, yet I have used it to hack countless people over 20 years of time. If you learn how to read people's eyes, their emotions, if you're attentive and you're paying close attention to what they're doing, it makes it really easy to get them to buy into what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
people like to talk, ask questions. They'll give you everything you want.
I went and I spoke with my wife. She helped me with at a conference in Oslo called Paranoia earlier this year. And we walked in, and she is a 5.5 foot tall girl with a foot tall mohawk. You guys have all probably met her. Ed runs Mohawk Con at DEF CON. But we had her in this really nice velvet crushed dress. And the best part was during the first part of the conference, before we gave our keynote, she was walking around in that nice dress, talking to all these people, collecting business cards, getting information, RFID, sweeping people. It was great. The best part was I go up and I start giving the presentation on stage, and I wait to call her out to about this point in the slide deck that we were giving. And she walks out on stage with the red dress on, looking like the Matrix girl in this shot here, and you watch half the audience go, shit. Because they realized as they were flirting with this large-breasted, tattooed-up, punk-looking chick, the entire time she'd been harvesting and stealing their credentials and their information and getting information about their business. Never underestimate the power of being able to be cute, smiling, flirting. That stuff goes a long way. Make people feel good about themselves when you're hacking them. It's a lot more successful than telling them that they're wrong or stupid.
So, not getting caught. So make sure you know where your exits are. Make sure you know. Yeah,
We talked about this.
We've gone over
Next slide.
Gone over this slide a fair amount.
Persistence.
All right, so once you're in the building, you want to make sure you still have access. So things like the rootkits, the USB thumb drives, the leave-behinds, which we use Arduinos or Pwn plugs all the time. No one notices a little bitty, white box that has a cellular modem in it and is plugged into their network, and then calls back to your server at home, so you can do everything else you need from the hotel room or from your house. Physical access. If you can get in there during the day, when you're not breaking and entering, putting tape over a door latch, putting, grabbing keys as you see them on people's desks, grabbing an ID. Those are things that are all really useful the next night when you're trying to get in. And people, for whatever reason, don't notice that shit missing. They don't notice that the door doesn't really close properly because you taped up the magnet or you taped up the latch that would normally allow the door to stay closed.
Big thing, though, is when you're getting out, when you're actually inside the facility and it's now time to leave, the big key that you need to think about is keeping calm. You need to look. You've got a backpack full of their most sensitive information. You've got the keys to the kingdom. You've scored. You have everything that you need, and now it's time to get out. The key is to not look like you're in a rush to get out or to not look like you belong again. So we gave you a couple little teasers here, but the funny thing is every one of these that's sitting on this slide is something that we've learned the hard way over the years. You'll notice that some of the things in here, like the don't hang out, are things that other speeches will tell you is absolutely a good thing to do so you can develop a rapport with the people. But the point is that once you've got the keys to the kingdom, get the hell out of Dodge. There's no reason to stick around and get yourself caught. Other cool things. I include this slide because Ryan and I over the years have taken a lot of pride in finding common household items like at Home Depot that you can use to help you with the work. But it'll amaze you, like if you're breaking into an office facility, simply having one of those stupid little rubber stoppers for a door is priceless. Because you can kick it if you break into an office in like a large complex of businesses, you break into an office, you can put that door stop in place, and then even if someone has a key, they're not going to be able to open it up to come in and to look at you. The key to remember about this stuff is you need to remove it when you go, too, because you can't leave stuff messed up. The little drain pipe cameras that you can buy now, they're about $50, I think, for the ones that use your smartphone app. Those are awesome for looking under doors, because it's always a good idea to have an idea of what's on the other side of the door before you walk through it if you're doing this work. You don't want to just all of a sudden walk into the middle of, central security when you're trying to break into their place.
Or the cleaning crew.
And the reason I included the headset, even though you'll never ever see me wearing a headset at work when I'm at work, is the filters. White light is very bright. It splashes. You can see it from miles and miles away. If you diffuse it using a red or a green light, it makes it very, very difficult for people's eyes to pick up the differences or the separation. So if you're inside of an office and you're going back and forth with like a red or a green light, it's not going to show outside of that office or outside of the windows like you would with a mag light, or Sure Shot.
So once you're done and you're out and the project's finished, here's the part that the client actually pays for. So this is where you actually have to spend time. The report. It needs to have a narrative explaining exactly what happened, and not just how badass you are and how shitty they are. You need to tell them where they're good at too. They're going to look at what failed and what worked. That's the point of this test. It's not just to make them fail. It's to also show them what worked. So make sure you have documentation around both sides of that. Make sure you know how their employees responded. Don't necessarily name people in the report unless the client specifically asks for it. I try to avoid that. Doesn't always work. There have been times where they've asked for names. But especially when the person acted exactly how they were supposed to, name that person. Make sure they understand, like, whatever you did, whatever training this person got, that worked. So repeat that, or have that person themselves help teach the rest of the company in the ways that they respond in the right way.
The other thing is, this is 2016. Get away from delivering static reports to people. It's important to be able to have something that people can sit around a boardroom and be able to look at and flip through and read, but include video presentation of the work that you're doing. I mean, a GoPro Silver Hero 4 is so small nowadays that if you have it on your backpack, and it's so common, no one's going to ever ask why you're wearing a camera. And the cool thing is you can literally record days into a video if you have enough memory on those things and the right battery setup.
And the client will end up using that and showing it off to their buddies, and it becomes a sales tool that you didn't even know you had, because they're going, dude, look what we did. This is badass.
Example from this last week
yeah.
was I was on a job, and I took video of the exploit process that I was doing while I was going through, and we got through, and I'm sitting there talking about how things are done. And I'm like, yeah, with art poisoning, we were able to sit here and man in the middle. We captured your VoIP traffic, and we were able to listen to phone calls and blah, blah. That to an executive meant nothing. When I hit play on my computer and played back a board administrative call from that business, and he listened to 4 minutes and 20 seconds of his board talking about highly sensitive information and data, all of a sudden that attack I did, which 2 seconds ago had meant nothing to him, was super, super critical and key, and he wanted to figure out how to mitigate that issue immediately. So that's it, guys. If you guys want to contact us, there's our information. And question and answers, and first time ever we got all the way through the slide deck. Yeah! Questions? Since we actually have time for once.
We have like 2 or 3 minutes, I think. So anybody have any questions, comments?
Stories to tell?
Throw stuff, hate stuff? Nothing.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
She raised her hand.
There's one.
She raised her
hand.
hand.
It. I saw it.
You can throw it. I'd like water. In case you didn't know, I drank 2 of them already.
Well, thank you very much, you guys.
Thanks, guys.